All right, so we're talking about the big game changers today and what is setting apart the industry as we speak. I've been in technology now since 1996. When I got out of school, I have an undergraduate degree in speech communication and a master's in PR. And everybody's like, how did you end up in technology? And the reason for that is because I realized those jobs don't pay very well. So I should have done that whole little research before I went into those. I got out of school and started interviewing, and they were like, oh, that's what it pays? I'm like, I can't raise a family on that. So my Sunday school teacher at the time was the vice president of sales for a technology company, so he hired me over there, and I've been in technology ever since. And in those years since 96, we've seen lots of changes. I was there when we were selling frame relay to replace 9600 baud point-to-point connections and stuff. And we've seen lots of change. But in the past couple of years, the rate of change has been incredible. And really the two things driving that are clouds and the consumers. So we're going to talk about those things today. When you talk about game-changing people or game-changing events, lately in the media, there's been this big talk about these two game changers, right? The Colts cut Peyton Manning this past week, which is a huge deal. They're about to owe him millions upon millions of dollars. Peyton Manning's won Super Bowls. He is, probably one of the best quarterbacks from a thinking perspective, from a game preparation standpoint, and all of that there is. Some team is going to be lucky to get Peyton out of this. But the Colts have the chance to draft Andrew Luck, who is one of those kind of once-in-a-lifetime quarterbacks. And so while every allegory, when you extend it, kind of breaks down a little bit, if you bear with me on the short end of this metaphor, is that there's nothing wrong with Peyton Manning. He has some neck surgery, but the doctors have cleared him to play. Yet this represents the future. There's really nothing wrong with the on-premise model that we're all used to, and it's still going to benefit people long term. But there's this opportunity to move to the new way and extract real benefits from it. And that's what we're going to look at today. And the new way, of course, is the cloud. So in my industry, we have buzzwords out the wazoo. And there's this little game you can play called Buzzword Bingo. You can go online and print these cards out. So if you're on the conference call with Microsoft, and they say that we're going to deploy this project in a fault-tolerant way to vertical niches as we collaborate, you have bingo. So you can have Buzzword Bingo, and you can go print these cards. As we're gonna. I love buzzwords. One of my new favorites is to socialize the documents. Has anybody heard that one? It means to pass them around. Okay, we're going to socialize the documents. No, you're not. You're just going to hand them around the office. But anyway, so we love buzzwords in our field. And the buzzwords that everyone hears about now is, you've got the private cloud, you've got the public cloud, you've got the hybrid cloud. And we're kind of filled with these buzzwords. And hopefully today we're going to take a little look at what those actually mean, what they mean to us, and how we use them. The other big piece of all this that's driving it is this guy. Okay? And they call him the digital native. And the digital native is the kid that grew up with all of this, right? He's got all of this. He is connected from day one. I think everyone's seen the little video online of the toddler with the tablet, knows immediately what to do. And these are the people that now as business owners we're trying to hire. And that's great. These kids love technology, except we hire them and bring them into the office and give them this, with this as the login screen, right? And that's a problem, is that they're used to having great technology. They've grown up with great technology. And lots of times the workplace is lagging behind being able to provide that technology to them. So they want what they want, and they want to use it in the way that they want to use it, and they're driving the changes. So you've got the cloud over on this side, and you've got the consumer over on this side. A guy I know, his name is Terry, he bought this. It's a Jaguar XJ, beautiful car, right? But we are so tethered to our devices, right? So Terry buys this car, and they say, would you like the iPod integration for it? He goes, yes, that'd be great. So he pays a little extra, $70,000 car, pays a little extra to get the iPod integration, plugs his iPhone up, and gets this accessory is not optimized for this iPhone. Okay, his car, $70,000 car, is an accessory to his smartphone now, And he said that they had to do a little firmware update and all this kind of stuff, and it worked. But he said there for a minute, I was like, I'm going to take this car back. He was ready to change his $70,000 purchase because it did not integrate effectively, with the phone in his pocket. And that is where we are. And that's the level of demand that the consumers have. Did I hit something on this? I don't know. Oh, no, we're good. So that's the level of demand that consumers have. As an Alabama fan, I like to show this slide because I can. When you speak, that's something that comes with, right? And so these were my seats at the 2009 National Championship game, because as an Alabama fan, National Championship games are not a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And as you can tell, that's the 50-yard line. And I was 23 rows back. Wayne Gretzky was sitting 2 rows behind me. Eva Mendes from Hitch was sitting immediately behind me. I think it says a lot about me as a guy that I'm texting pictures to my friends of Wayne Gretzky, and they're all texting back, and they're saying, Eva Mendes is sitting directly behind you. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice her. I was looking at the great one. But what's funny about the cloud is we talk about the cloud all the time, but I really put this picture up here to illustrate a point, is that we use the cloud every day. We just haven't really been used to calling it something. So I took this picture with my phone. Okay, so first you have to get past the fact that it wasn't a disc camera, that I took the disc to the Walgreens and waited a week to get them to get me the pictures back. I took it on my phone. Then I had enough bandwidth available to upload this picture to Facebook. Okay, so then at Facebook, it hits out there, and Facebook stores my pictures somewhere. I think that we all need to understand that the way the cloud works is that Facebook doesn't have like a folder called David Powell that they put all my stuff in, and then when you go to my page, they pull all that stuff out of my folder. They're distributing my information across the globe, across their distributed network and their storage. And then when you hit my profile page, it pulls all this together. So then my friends that I went to the 92 National Championship game with, I've been to 3, which is awesome. And so they're commenting, say, oh, wow, how'd you get those seats? Wish we were there. I remember the last game that we went to. And I'm getting email notifications on my phone of this. This is what we're used to, right? But we take it for granted so much, is that is the cloud. We check our bank all the time. I got gas on the way down here from Birmingham today. If I had gotten in my car, just a minute could go by and I could log into Regions Bank on my phone, and there would have been the transactions immediately on there. So we're used to this environment already. But now we've got to figure out, okay, as consumers we're used to it, as consumers we're selecting technology, what is the business response to that? How do we take what we're accustomed to in our personal lives and now imbue that into the business? So for a lot of people, it's called this consternation. This is a picture of me and my son at the game this year. See, it's great when you get to talk because you get to rub everybody's nose and stuff. And a guy in my office, when I talk about these topics, lots of times I talk about cloud consumers and consternation. And there's this Auburn guy who sits in the desk next to me, and he heard me talk. And he said, you know what consternation is? He goes, it's my worry that Coach Saban's never going to leave. He said that we're going to have him forever. But you have these two competing forces. You have the cloud and the consumer, and it creates lots of times in us this consternation, this kind of worry, this fear. Where's it going? What's it mean to me? Am I going to lose my job? As tech links, we go in and sell technology a lot. And we have to overcome the ideas lots of times for our customers that this is not a resume event. That us selling cloud into our customers doesn't mean that the tech guys have to go brush up their resume because they're getting canned. It is not that. So there's always this worry and doubt, and how do we handle that? So let's explore this a little bit more. Is that the market is moving inexorably towards the cloud. We can't stand in the way of it. Okay, it's just headed that way. As I mentioned, we're all used to using it ourselves. So it seems very obvious that the business has to adapt. And lots of times we'll tell our customers or our internal tech guys, we'll say, look, you can't say no. You can say yes, but you can't say no. The business that stands in front of the cloud and says, no, we're not going to the cloud, is going to end up like that Cadillac. Okay? It's going to get run over by it. It is moving that way. It is incapable of being stopped. So the question then is, how do we use it? And the answer there has to be yes, but. We're going to use cloud-based services. We're going to embrace a cloud strategy, but we have to do it in a way that, is efficient for us, optimizes what we're trying to do, is in alignment with our business processes, still done in a secure way, taking care of our precious data and our resources that's not just kind of willy-nilly, strewn about. And that's really the concern, is it's headed that way. So if we can lay the tracks, If we can help our organizations get it to where we want to go and direct it instead of standing in the way of it, we don't end up crushed, we end up adding value. Because if you can come in and say, hey, I heard this guy talking, we need a cloud strategy of some kind, and let's begin to explore that. You then can craft where the tracks go and direct the train towards the cloud instead of standing in front of it. The whole talk about everything is going to the cloud and everybody hears it, and Microsoft, I got to admit, has done a great job on their, to the cloud messaging. You know that something has moved mainstream when my mom called one day and said, hey, Dave, what's this cloud thing? I'm like, funny you should ask, Mom. You called the right guy. And my family has no idea whatsoever what I do. I'm sure if any of y'all work in technology, it's like, you go off into mysterious land and come home and, they don't have the foggiest idea what you do. But when, Microsoft and everyone, the cloud messaging now has become so prevalent and so persistent that your non-initiated technical user has some kind of idea about what it is, has some kind of idea about how it should be used. And what we're finding, if you notice right here, the kitchen sink going to the cloud, what we're finding is that the early vision of the cloud was that everything was going to go. Is that we're just going to pick our whole infrastructure up, slide it over, and dump it in the cloud. And what we're finding is more workflows are going to the cloud. Not everything, but let's take our email system and push it to the cloud. Or let's take our customer relationship management system and push it to the cloud. Or let's put our inventory system. Or let's put a customer-facing portal so they can interface with us. Let's put those things in the cloud. And so it begins this migration piece by piece. So early on, we thought, that you were going to end up with this kind of closet to cloud type of thing, where the wiring closet at your office was just going to go away and everything was going to go to the cloud. What we're seeing is that server by server, system by system, workflow by workflow, those things are going to the cloud. Not all en masse, unless you're a pretty small company. Customers are wanting to pay for it as they go. This is one of the big drivers of the cloud. In that, in the past couple of years, everyone's felt the effects of the economy. There's very few people that are just like sitting on piles of cash today that, that pile of cash has grown over the past few years. I think for TechLinks, we've definitely seen the market begin to turn. Our customers are beginning to loosen up and to spend. But what's driving the cloud to a large degree is, let's get my Alabama buddy here. What's your name? Mahir. So let's say Mahir and I own a business together. 10 years ago, if it was time to do a server refresh, he and I could stroll down to the local bank and walk in and say, hey, we need a $100,000 loan, signature loan, so we can buy new assets for our technology. They're like, okay, cool, sign here, here's $100,000. We'd go buy a whole bunch of technology and turn it up. Now, if he and I strolled down to the bank and said, hey, we want to borrow $100,000, they're going to be like, well, we need your firstborn child. What's your blood type? Can we get your medical records? We want to lien on your house. All those things. So access to credit is not what it used to be. So in the SMB space, people are saying, why do I need to spend all this money on technology today and buy all this, that year one I'm going to use this, year two I'm going to use that, year three I'm going to use that, year four, and grow into it? Why don't I just pay for it as I use it? And that's a huge driver that we're seeing in the cloud, is that it gets in alignment with operational cost for a customer as opposed to CapEx. We have a lot of customers tell us, if we can just get it in the budget once, we can keep it in the budget. But if I have to go in again and ask for $50,000, I get into trouble. That's a problem for me. So that is a huge trend that we're seeing. Is they just want to pay for what they use. Can you pay for that per user? Can I pay for that per month? It's the same reason, and the other little quick aside here is that the cloud doesn't really ROI that well. It's usually not an ROI sale, but lease on a car never ROIs either. Right? But people still lease cars because they can afford the monthly lease payment. They can't afford to go buy the car. And that's really what we see with this, is that people can afford to get into the technology in the cloud on a monthly basis. They can't afford the CapEx over on the other side. The other big thing driving the cloud right now is compliance and audit stuff. It's funny that the cloud is actually, people are moving to the cloud because of security, not in spite of security. Okay, which seems curious because you would think, wow, the cloud would be like less secure. The cloud would be potentially have greater risks than I would have here. A couple of points on that. One is whenever customers really ask us about security, what I tend to point out to them is I usually ask the question, I said, do you online bank? And they always like, oh yeah, we online bank. And I'm like, well, where's your data? Well, I don't know. Is it at the regions down here in the corner? Is it at the tall regions downtown? Well, I don't have the foggiest idea where it is. And I'm like, well, you don't know where your most personal data, the one question in America you don't ask, right, is how much do you make? What do you have in the bank? That's the one question you don't ask. You'll ask them how many square feet they have in their house. You'll ask them how many bedrooms, whatever, but you don't ask any of that. So your most personal, sacred data,